Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll ask Councilman Lewis to lead us in prayer and Councilman Conk to lead us in the pledge.
Lord, you have trusted us as stewards of this parish. Please guide our hearts as we make decisions. May we always be mindful of our service and seek you first in all that we do. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the meeting. Hope everyone had a great day. It was definitely a beautiful day, for sure. Hopefully we have a lot more of those, especially with festival season around the corner. We welcome you to the City Parish Council meeting. We, as your representatives in the Lafayette Consolidated Government, welcome your involvement and encourage your participation. This meeting is a public hearing. If you wish to address the council on any item on this agenda, we ask that you please fill out the request form that's located in the foyer next to the computer that is provided. Electronic requests to address the council form must be filled out and submitted prior to the call of the agenda item, or you will not be given the opportunity to speak at that time. If assistance is needed when you're submitting the request, we do have staff that is available to help you. In the event a speaker has completed their comments prior to the expiration of their allotted 5 minutes, any remaining time shall be forfeited. If you have materials you wish to submit to the council, please give those to the council clerk, Ms. Veronica Williams, who's seated to my left and in the middle. In an effort to allow everyone an opportunity to be heard, there is a 5-minute rule that will be in effect. Speakers shall refrain from debating personal attacks and from making confrontational or derogatory comments. I am requesting that the first row to my left be used for media only. Lastly, food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium, and we ask that all cell phones or electronic devices be silenced from this point forward. I'm also requesting that anyone who approaches the council, whether you're a department head or you're a citizen filling out a blue card or anybody coming up to speak, we definitely want your full name and the title for the official record. Meetings this evening are by resolution and not by Robert's Rules of Order. Documents including tonight's agenda, the ordinances, resolutions, and minutes related to this meeting are posted online at LafayetteLA.gov, or you can refer to the web address on the top of the agenda item. The council encourages your involvement and participation by volunteering for boards and commissions. If you're interested in finding out what board suits your interests, call 291-8800, or you may pick up a pamphlet at the door. Moving along to chair announcements. Please note item number 7, resolution R18-2018, relative to 108 Asset Avenues Industrial Tax Exemption application that was requested by Advanced Products to defer to the May 15 council meeting. The owner is unable to attend and wanted to allow additional time for review of this new legislation. Myself as chairman concurs, given this is in my district. We'll give it some more time. The resolution will be read and motion for a vote, given this is new legislation. Item 16, ordinance 046-2018, relative to an IGA with SLCC and LUS. Legal have proposed an amendment to include as backup the Exhibit A and to add language to the IGA in Section 2 of the ordinance requiring approval of the council and the LPUA prior to any contributions in subsequent years. Item 27, introduction ordinance 014-2018 relative to amending ordinance number 114-2013 is being pulled from the in-global list for a separate vote and discussion, as Finance has requested an amendment to replace the budget revision with the revised version. Last but not least, I'd also like to wish Toby Aguilar, Lafayette Police Chief, a happy birthday, which he will celebrate on April 24th. Happy birthday, Chief. Also would like to wish my fellow council member and dear friend from District 5, Mr. Jared Bellard, council member. He's celebrating a birthday, and it will be on April 26th. Congratulations, Jared. think anytime you make a year, it's a good thing, right? I'm just glad to wake up, right? All right. That's it for chair announcements. I'm going to move right along to council announcements if I have any fellow council members that would like to chime in or have any special announcements. Nope. Okay. Moving right along, I'm going to move to the Executive Mayor's President's Report. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mayor President Joe Robideau, and I'd like to tell you that I'm sorry I missed the event last week. I was out on vacation, but heard everything went well, and you have the mic, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing is we have a proclamation I'd like to read. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and impacts every person in this community, and whereas child sexual abuse prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will experience a sexual assault before age 18, whereas young people experience heightened rates of sexual violence, whereas on campuses 1 in 5 women and 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted during their time in college, whereas we must work together to educate our community about sexual violence prevention, supporting survivors, and speaking out against harmful attitudes and actions, and whereas the first step in preventing sexual abuse and healing those affected in our community is by taking action to create a safer environment and to increase education, awareness, and community involvement, and whereas the Lafayette Commission on the Needs of Women and Do Tell's Day of Hope Freedom Rally, Take a Stand, join advocates and communities across the country in taking action to prevent sexual violence. And whereas April is designated as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, each day of the year is an opportunity to create change for the future. Now therefore I, Joel Robideau, Mayor President of Lafayette Consolidated Government, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2018 is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I think we have someone from the Lafayette Commission, Maurice, and someone from Hearts of Hope that's here.
Intimidating, is what that is.
Also, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to bring up Chief Aguilar here to talk about something with the council real quick. Toby?
2-minute rule is in effect.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Chairman, council members, Mr. Mayor President, and everyone else. Recent events have caused people across the nation to take a closer look at school safety, specifically school resource officers and those programs, and Lafayette is no exception. And I wanted you all to be aware that myself and the other chiefs of police in Lafayette Parish, as well as the sheriff, are currently engaging in conversation with members of the Lafayette Parish School Board about our school resource officer program. I think that the school board is focused on making it more robust for the future, meaning adding more officers to more schools, with the ultimate goal of having a school resource officer in every single school in this parish. Right now, the Lafayette PD has officers stationed at all of the high schools as well as many of our middle schools, but some middle schools and some elementary schools are not covered. And so I think that is something that we've identified as being a problem, considering everything going on. And it's something that's being addressed now. I wanted you all just to be aware that we are engaging in those conversations. Some of the things that have come up in the course of conversation, is turning over the school resource officer program to the sheriff's office to run. Others is continuing a partnership like we have now, where all of the individual agencies located, police agencies in Lafayette Parish, hold on to their school resource officers while the sheriff takes over the schools that are not currently covered. There's even been discussion about having law enforcement pull out and a private security takeover. All of it is just conversation right now. To my knowledge, there's no vote set yet at the school board. I wanted you to know that as far as the Lafayette police are concerned, I consider it, first of all, our priority is protecting our children. That's priority one. Secondly, the school resource officer program is very important to me. Having an officer from Lafayette PD in all of our Lafayette City schools in a Lafayette City police uniform is important. It's part of continuing our community relations, our efforts to build trust with the community. Having an officer at our schools with daily positive interaction with kids is important to me, and I will be fighting to keep that. But with that said, we're going to continue the conversation. I do believe that this is going to take legs, and I think that there will be progress, and as that happens, I'll keep you informed. So I just wanted you all to be aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ontario?
Chief, thank you so much. And I may be catching you off guard with this information, but I was having a discussion with somebody maybe last week, I think it was, and their question was, how many cumulative school resource officers do we have at this point? Do you have a guesstimate as to how many we have in the schools at this time?
You're talking about from the entire parish?
Yes, sir.
I believe the number is around 22.
Around 22, and we're looking to increase that to get one in every school.
That's correct.
And
now, 22 would cover not only LPD, but Karen Crow, Scott, all of the other PDs, as well as the sheriff's office.
Okay, that's what we were looking for. I didn't know how to respond to that. And man hours would range, I guess, for each different department. Would that be correct?
Yes. So, and by the way, right now, Lafayette PD itself has 12 school resource officers. Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have, Chief. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And Mr. Chairman, lastly, I'd like to call up Terry Huval to come up and discuss the Chico Aquifer for the council.
Okay.
Thank you, Joel, and thank you for your attention. You know, I guess several weeks ago there was some discussion about the Chico Aquifer and the quality of the water and so forth. And one of the comments I made was that there's a lot of areas where communities receive their water from a lake or a river, you know, and then no matter what's in that lake or river, are able to treat it to condition to where it's safe drinking water for their citizens. We're fortunate here in Lafayette and the Acadiana area to have the Chico Aquifer, which is a very stable, high-quality resource of water for us and provides good, safe, consistent drinking water for our community. Just some of the questions, and I thought it might be helpful to have someone that has kind of studied on his own the Chico Aquifer, and his name is Bill Neef. He's a civil engineer in the community, well highly respected. So I asked him to prepare something to share with you and the public concerning the Chico Aquifer and our provision of water in the city of Lafayette. Bill?
And I've provided each of you a copy of the presentation.
Okay.
And my name is Bill Neef with Neef Engineering, and this is going to be a very, very basic discussion of the Chico Aquifer, what it's about. And it's kind of a two-part presentation. Part of it is what I had prepared, just again, basic of the Chico Aquifer. The other is some information from LUS with regard to some of the specifics for the water system, which was, I'd gotten together with the environmental manager. She couldn't be here tonight, so I'll present her part of this also. Basically, there are two types of aquifers. There's confined and unconfined. Unconfined is where there's water can basically just drop right down through the ground and refill the aquifer. That's not the kind of aquifer we have here. I would imagine Arizona, maybe, where there's sand pretty much all the way up to the surface. Water can just easily infiltrate down into the ground. In a confined aquifer like we have here, you'll have a clay or rock layer above it. You'll have a clay or rock layer below it. And in between there will be a layer of sand and gravel that's coarse enough and porous enough that water can flow through it. That's the area that we call the Chico aquifer. The layer above it is somewhat protective of the aquifer. It's not a perfect seal of it. There can be faults in that clay. There can be other fissures, that sort of thing. But it is somewhat protective. You can also have water that exists inside of that clay layer that wouldn't really be considered aquifer water. With all the rain we had this winter, you could go outside right now, probably dig a fence post, drill a hole 3 feet deep, you probably hit water. We call that perched water, water that can infiltrate down into the ground, but actually never, it's really not part of the aquifer. You can't produce the water from there. You couldn't get enough out to be able to provide water to a single home. So again, you've got the layers above and below and the sand and gravel. Well, the question becomes, how does the water refill when you take water out of it every day? Well, there will be an area where that sand and gravel comes back up to the surface. We call it the outcrop area. In Louisiana, and for the Chico aquifer, which covers about 9,000 square miles, all of South and Southwest Louisiana, it's considered a sole source aquifer, meaning all or most all water used by everyone, for home use, you need it in your business, for agricultural use. It comes out of the Chico aquifer, so it's extremely important to this area. Well, where does it refill? The primary areas where water can go in great volume to refill it is actually in about 3 parishes up around Alexandria, and you also get some recharge from the Atchafalaya Basin. The other areas, you couldn't get enough water flowing down through the surface to replenish the aquifer. That's where most of the water will come from. In Lafayette Parish, the clay layer that exists above varies in thickness. There would be some places it's about 40 feet thick. On the western side of the parish, USGS has found it to be, in some places, 120 feet thick. So it does kind of vary. The sand of the Chico aquifer below that exists down to approximately 900 feet. So you've got roughly, we'll call it 800 feet, 850 feet of fresh water sitting above a saltwater aquifer, the Evangeline aquifer that sits below the Chico aquifer. The aquifer itself is described in 2 different zones. You have the upper sand and you have the lower sand, designated by about the 500-foot level. Above 500 feet, we call that the upper sand of the aquifer. Below 500 feet into about 900 feet where the saltwater starts, we consider that to be the lower sand. LUS has 2 main water plants. They have 4 in all, but 2 main. The north plant that's on Buchanan, all of its wells where it's screened, which means if you ran a pipe all the way down into the ground and cut some slots in it, the way the water gets in is going in those slots. Those slots are somewhere between 500 and 600 feet deep. At the south plant, which is over off of Dagduyan, the screened interval is around 200 to 250 feet. So when they draw water into those plants, that's the level of the Chico aquifer that they're pulling it out. Now, the reason that it would be at those levels, which I wasn't involved in that, but typically the way that it's done is you go and you drill a test well, and you're testing water quality, and you're also testing capacity. How much water can you get to the well? So you're looking for that place that gives you the highest volume of water along with the best quality. So that would likely be the reasons why at north it's at 600 feet and at south they're at about 250. Again, this is the information now from Ms. Mouton with LUS. LUS has 4 water treatment plants, 2 main and 2 what we'll call satellite plants. The north plant on Buchanan is served by 9 total water wells. Well, they only need 4 of those for everyday production. 5 of them are there for backup. The south plant over off of Dagduyan has 7 wells. Only 3 of them are needed for everyday production. 4 of them are for backup. The Gloria Switch plant, which is a smaller satellite plant, has 2 wells. They only need 1 every day. Commission Boulevard, another small satellite plant, has 2 wells and they only need 1. The backup measures that LUS has to be able to continuously provide water, there's always the possibility you have to shut a well down for some reason. Mechanical problems, you could have different things that happen to it. That's why they have the extra wells. So if something happens, they can continue production. The other thing they have, because then again, it's a type of emergency that we're well used to around here, is hurricanes. Hurricanes can come in and knock out primary power to the plants. Each plant has sufficient generator capacity to be able to operate the plants and all of the treatment processes, even if full power to the plant is lost through the hurricanes. So the plants can stay up and running even when there's no power in the city. There's a very extensive monitoring procedure that LUS is required to go through in order to provide potable water. It starts at the wells. Periodically, DHH comes in and collects samples from the wells, and that's where they do the very long laundry list of the different parameters that they're looking for. You would want to know at the well. That's why they do it there. While the water is at the plant being treated in these various processes, there are samples being collected and analyzed there to ensure that the treatment process is working properly. Once it leaves the plant and it's out in the distribution system, LUS collects samples. Some samples they collect every day. There are other samples that might be just once a month for other parameters, some just every quarter. There's some just have to be done every year. But out in the distribution system, LUS is out there every day monitoring the quality of the water. On top of that, on an annual basis, LUS even goes into certain homes, because we're all familiar with Flint, Michigan, and the problem that they had with lead there. And what it was determined is the water was corrosive, and people's home plumbing systems had lead and copper in them. If you have corrosive water, you could pull that lead and copper into the water. LUS actually goes into the homes and selects homes that have copper fittings. That's, the rule requires that you do that. And they collect those samples to make certain that that water is not carrying any of the lead or copper, in this case, into the drinking water. So that wouldn't have even come out of the plant. It would have just been something that happened. They're protective of that also. The other thing is, in the Safe Drinking Water Act has primary standards, has secondary standards, has all of these other things. But the primary standards are when we talk about lead in the water, when we talk about arsenic in the water, when we talk about pesticides in the water, when we talk about these organic compounds that none of us can pronounce. That's what that is. That's what the primary standards are. And LUS has never had a violation of any primary drinking water standard. That is all I have. If there are any questions?
I'm not seeing any at this time. Thank you very much, Mr. Neef. Appreciate it. Mr. Terry, do you have anything else? You good? Okay. Mr. Mayor President, anything else?
That's all for me. Thank you.
Oh, you have? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Moving along to ceremonial presentations.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah?
they had a speaker for this presentation.
That wasn't the speaker? Mr. Neef?
No,
Oh,
no, sir.
Okay.
That was the presenter.
All right, I'm sorry. At this time, we'd like to call up the speaker.
Dr. Michael Walden.
Hello, and thank you again. My name is Michael Walden. I'm a PhD engineer and a retired environmental engineer and a hydrologist. I put on my old college professor hat here, and I just want to go through Mr. Neef's presentation and talk about a few things that I think he might not have quite right. First, I would point you to USGS report number 73, which was published in 1974. And Dennis Martin, who has spoken here before, the local geologist and oil field geologist, has written a letter to DOTD, and I reprinted it in connectorcomments.org blog. It's titled, "The Chico Aquifer Impermeable Barrier Assumption Has Been Questioned by Geologists for Decades." This is by Dennis Martin. In fact, report number 73 was written in 2004 for the express reason that they questioned this idea that we had this impermeable clay layer, which in fact had been questioned for years before that. I do agree with Mr. Huval that we have a wonderful resource here in the Chico Aquifer. It is stable, high quality, and plentiful, and we want to preserve that. That's the whole reason that the public is coming to you, asking you to take action about the rail yard contamination and the contamination of the aquifer above our wells that's coming from the rail yard and possibly other places. We need a study to find out. Now, in the discussion of confined and unconfined, the world isn't really quite that black and white. Years ago, 1930 or so, up to that time, our aquifer was artesian. That means it was under pressure, and if you drilled a well into it down below about 50 feet, water would come shooting up out of the well. Our artesian aquifer was under pressure. So yes, nothing went down through the clay layer, because if there was a hole in the clay layer, water came up. We had springs here that people used to love to go to for recreation that were nice, cool water that was bubbling up out of that artesian aquifer. Around 1930, that stopped happening. We used so much water out of the aquifer, and we broke through the clay layer in places, and that aquifer was no longer under pressure. Today, the pressure in the aquifer, measured in feet of water, is over 50 feet down below the surface. So it's actually sucking, in a sense, from the surface. And any imperfections in that clay layer, the water goes down instead of up now. So recharge, there was a study, I believe it was actually even funded by LUS, that showed that the average age of the water in the upper Chico, right there at our water plants, is about 30 years old. Now, this old idea that the water's coming from Alexandria, moving at like 10 to 50 feet a year, doesn't make it 30 years old. No, we're getting recharge now from the surface, unfortunately, but that's where the water's coming from, recharging, and most of the water is coming off the surface down into our aquifer. And there are other ways to measure the age of the water, and I'm sure if you look into it, you can find these things. The clay layer is 10 or 12 feet thick. It's right here at our water plant. It's not 40 feet thick as you might take from what Mr. Neef said. I'm not sure if that's exactly what he said, but it's only about 10 or 12 feet thick, you know, and it was laid down at a time when there was river water coming over this land, and it was laying down river clays. Well, you know that's not totally uniform, and trees can grow in the clay, and the old tree roots leave channels. So that's a problem. Now, I got to hurry on here and say, the list of monitoring chemicals, we have recommended that the list include everything that might potentially be at the rail yard, and it doesn't right now. Also, many things are only monitored once every 3 years. At the wells where we found contamination, like Endron was found in well 19 in March of this year. It was only detected. I'm not saying that it's a hazard, but that once every 3 years, it was previously measured in 2015. So we should measure more often than once every 3 years at the places where we have contamination. Thank you.
Mr. Bruce Cohn.
Mr. Walton, could you please repeat what you told the LPUA earlier this afternoon regarding the quality and the safety of the water coming out of the LUS system?
Oh, I'd love to, but I ran out of minutes. Yes, no one that I know of from the public has been saying that the LUS water is unhealthful or at a risk to drink. I drink it myself. And with a city the size of Lafayette, we can adapt to any contamination that gets down to our water wells. We can either treat it or we can move the well field. What we need to be in mind of is the ratepayers who would have to pay for that, and to be sure that if we do have to abandon our wells and move somewhere else, that the responsible party for the contamination is the one that actually pays for it, and not the ratepayers and the taxpayers.
So more to the point of my question, the drinking water that's provided to the city of Lafayette is safe, and there should be no concern on the part of the public today about the quality, correct?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Not seeing any other discussion. All right, moving right along to ceremonial presentations. At this time, I'd like to give the floor to Councilman Lewis. Your mic's on, sir. I got you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Boys and Girls Club Week, so I have a proclamation I'd like to read to the Boys and Girls Club, and I think they're out here. Whereas the young people of Lafayette, Louisiana are tomorrow's leaders, and whereas many young people need professional youth services to help them achieve their full potential, and whereas there are 2 Boys and Girls Clubs in Lafayette, Louisiana, including the Jackie and Granbury units that serve more than 1,000 young people annually. Whereas Boys and Girls Clubs instill young people with the self-confidence to believe they can succeed at anything they put their mind to, and stand at the forefront of efforts in the areas of academic success, healthy lifestyles, good character and citizenship, and whereas Boys and Girls Club organization in Louisiana help ensure young people have a safe, supportive place to spend time, and will provide that time with quality youth development programs. And whereas the Boys and Girls Club of Acadiana will celebrate National Boys and Girls Club Week with some 4,000 clubs and over 2 million more children and teens nationwide. The Boys and Girls Club of Acadiana, on behalf of the people of Lafayette, Louisiana, I salute all individuals who support these programs. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Lafayette City Parish Council that April 9th through the 13th, 2018 is declared Boys and Girls Club Week in Lafayette, Louisiana. Furthermore, I encourage all citizens to join me in recognizing and commending Boys and Girls Clubs in Louisiana for providing the young people of our communities with comprehensive and effective youth development service. Thank you. I have this presentation.
Would you like to say something from the Boys and Girls Club? I mean, would you like to?
My name is Joe Long. I'm the unit director of the Jackie unit. And thank y'all for taking this time, welcoming us here and doing this proclamation for us. It was a big week for us, and we're excited. And I just want to introduce, and she don't want to speak, but it's okay. But Bailey Charles is a senior at Lafayette High. Just the end of March, she was elected as a State Youth of the Year for the Boys and Girls Clubs, and her and I will be taking your first plane ride, I believe, to Atlanta in June, where she will compete for the Southeast Regional Youth of the Year.
Great.
So wish her luck. But I do appreciate the time, so thank y'all so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, we would like to call up Mr. Wallace Senegal. You'd like to speak?
You signed in to speak, or did you want to speak under comments from the public? You signed in under the wrong item?
I look like I scared you right there.
Okay.
Okay, all
We'll
right.
put them down for comments from the public. And Mr. Chair, for those of you trying to access the hyperlinks for the electronic agenda, we have been informed by IS&T, our Information Systems and Technology Department, that there was an internet outage and disruption earlier in the week, which has caused some problems to accessing these hyperlinks. They are working on the problem. However, they do not think that they'll get it fixed by the end of the meeting tonight. So we just wanted to let you know that they are working on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. No comment on that one, huh? All right, we're going to move to comments from the public. This portion of our meeting is an opportunity to make your voice heard before the council, the administration, and the public. This is the time to speak about topics that are not included as agenda items. As I noted earlier, requests to make comments specific to an agenda item should be made prior to the call for that agenda item by completing an electronic request to address the council form for each item in each item you wish to address. Please, we request that all matters regarding specific city parish employees be directed to the administration and that it is not to be addressed at this public forum. We as a council have a concern for the privacy and protection of government employees. With that said, however, if your concern is not resolved in either an expeditious or satisfactory fashion, there are other avenues in which can be pursued, and we ask that you follow up with the council office. Also, confrontational statements and or threats will not be tolerated. We ask that you conduct yourself in a civil manner and with the same courtesy that you would expect of others. 5-minute rule is in effect. Ms. Veronica, can you tell us how many speakers so far we have?
We have 10 speakers,
Okay.
the first of which is Barry Baskell.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm not sure I'm that much an eloquent speaker, so I have some papers here that I may have to refer to, if you give me that latitude. I'm here to speak to an ordinance that was already voted on by the Council. Ordinance 0-220-2016. The ordinance basically abandoned the right to Lippy Street off of College Saloon. This was done to enable St. Pius to build their church. First of all, I'm a Catholic, born practicing Southern Louisiana Catholic. So this is not about church, it's not about the government. This is about the danger, the traffic, the disrepair to property, school safety, church safety, by cutting off the beginning of a street, which baffles me to begin with. They have limited access to their own buildings. The church is on the left side of Lippy, and then there are 5 homes on that first block. The church has since bought one of those homes that came up for sale after this disaster occurred. On the right side, the whole first block belongs to the church, to the school and schoolyard, school buildings. It seems to me that the idea should have been to put the dead end at the end of that street if they were going to do that, and have access to the buildings that are drawing these huge crowds. They could pull in Lippy, go to the church, pull in Lippy, go to the school. Instead, they cut off Lippy and basically send everyone down Cecile Drive, which I am a homeowner. They have a couple of things that also, occurred to me looking at this, is that the street was dedicated in 1961 or 62, which I'm sure was deemed necessary for some reason. And then in the ordinance, it says it is no longer needed for public use. And I was just wondering how you come up with that decision. Yes, there was a notice put in the newspaper the weekend before, I believe, of the vote. I read that notice. I have no problem with the church being built there. That's wonderful. I can walk out my house and a few steps, I'm in church. I never in my life dreamed that they would close a street that basically just services them. There's 5 other houses on that street, that's it, and they're buying them up. I want to repeat that. They're buying these homes up. The rest of the ordinance is pretty basic until you do get to the plat, the survey, and then you realize that they've only kind of boxed themselves in. And thinking about the police chief's mentioning of the danger of school shootings and church shootings and all that stuff, emergency vehicles no longer have access to that very area that you would want to protect. They now have to go down East Bayou Parkway a couple of blocks and come back around, come, over Cecile and go around. It seems like they're causing themselves more problems, maybe not with the forethought. The other thing in the ordinance is the council requires an abandonment list for Libby Boulevard. It has Capital Improvement Division approved, 9/7/2016. Drainage operation, no approval. Traffic and Transportation, no approval. Lafayette Utilities, Civil Engineering Division, approved. Electrical Engineering Division, approved.
Sir, the
Yes.
5-minute rule.
Okay, so if I hit 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's the 5
Okay,
minutes.
then what, third meeting of next month, I'll get my next.
Yes, sir, yes.
Got it.
This is policy and procedure.
Fire
Thank you, though.
department, not approved. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Next speaker is Kim Goodale.
Okay.
She will pass.
Okay.
Next speaker is Donald Segura.
Mayor President, Mr. Chairman, council members, my name is Donald Segura, and I'm Executive Director of Tesh Vermilion Freshwater District. And I'm here today to tell you a little bit about our district. Our district was created after many years of effort between the 4 parishes of the district, Lafayette, Iberia, St. Martin, and Vermilion parishes. They started this effort back in 1961 and were successful in getting the Tesh Vermilion project pumping in 1982. I'd like to introduce some of the members of our commission who are here with us today. Our chairman of our commission is from Lafayette, Ed Saunier. We have our commissioner from Vermilion Parish, Ralph Libersat, and our legal advisor, Alex Apresto. The project has performed as our forefathers hoped it would, and the operations of the district have lived up to the commitment that our charter members made to the federal government. That is, to be financially capable of keeping this project going. The project is inspected annually by engineers with the Louisiana CPRA, and the district corrects any deficits that are noted. We are currently installing a siphon under the State Canal, which will end up being at least an $8 million project. We're also making major repairs to the conveyance channel control structure. These improvements are being paid for by the funds of the district as was agreed upon. The district is responsible for the pumping station, the inlet channel, and additionally 6 structures throughout the parishes of the district. I have a map here of the district that shows where all of the structures are located. Also, we have a disc that explains the features of our project and the benefits of our project, and a brochure that also explains our project. And we'd like for each one of you to have a copy of those, and I will stay here after the meeting if anyone would like to go over the distribution and look at where all of the structures are. The pumping of fresh water throughout the district when needed has been one of the things that have contributed to improved water quality in Bayou Teche and the Vermilion River over the past decades. We are funded by a 1.5 mil property tax. We currently levy 1.41 mills that generate about $5 million per year. Property owners in each of the 4 parishes pay the same millage. Our accountant and auditor has calculated that average recurring revenues over expenditures for the years 2012 to 2016 is a little over $44,000 per year. Your Teche Vermilion commissioners understand and share the concerns of the citizens of the district about flood issues. We also flooded. We've been part of the team that has met to try to figure solutions. We want to continue to be part of that team. We have identified one particular part of the plan to address flooding that fits our authority, and that is the Regional Gauge Project. All of the experts that we have heard speak about flood control at these meetings agreed that the start to solving the problem is a Regional Gauge Project. Not only will this project give experts information needed to make drainage decisions, but it will help the district adjust flows during high rainfall events. Currently, if we are pumping and high rainfall amounts are predicted, we stop pumps and allow levels to go down before the event occurs. Gates at Ruth Canal are closed when elevations at Surrey Street reach 9 feet. The reasons for doing this is to keep water from Bayou Teche from getting into the Vermilion River. The Laurelville Canal structure is opened to drain Bayou Teche into Lake Fawcett Point, when elevations reach 4 feet on the Teche side of the structure. The district is asking your support for us to participate in this gauge project.
Mr. Donald, the 5 minutes have went up.
I was finished.
But we do have a question. Yes, sir. Okay. Councilman Boudreaux.
Mr. Segura, when you first began, you said that there was a commitment made to the federal government by the founding members of the commission. What was that commitment again?
Well, the commitment was that the federal government would pay for this project. It cost the federal government $40 million. The charter members had to do several things for this to happen. First of all, we had to assure the federal government that we would be able to run this project and have the money to do it. So we signed an agreement with the federal government to do that, and that led to the creation of our district. Then we also had to assure the federal government that we had sufficient money to run the project, as well as to replace all of the features of the project. So the district was created, and the taxpayers of the district were asked to pass a millage of 1.5 mills, which they have, and that was in 1970. Once this was done, then the federal government went forward with turning over the project to the district. The project belongs to the parish. It belongs to the people of the 4 parishes. So there are other legal agreements that I may have left out, but our legal advisor is here that could make those. But basically, we had to be fiscally responsible, and we had to guarantee them, and we also had to sign an agreement that they would not be responsible for giving us any more money to repair and replace any of the features of the project.
Right. So I've heard some of this information before. Your budget objective is to have enough money available to replace the entire project in the event that everything was to go away / shut down / break down / be destroyed in some event, that immediately that you needed to have sufficient funds to replace the entire project. That's the commitment that you made to the federal government?
Well, I don't think that's the commitment. Well, the commitment was that we would replace and repair as needed.
Right.
So we have, in early days, we would ask the Corps to give us input as to how much money we should have on hand to be able to do that. And the whole project cost $40 million back in 1982. Right now, it would be over $100 million to replace. If everything went out at one time, it would be over $100 million. So then, so the Corps we'd write a letter and ask for how much they think it should be. They would send us a letter saying how much they thought it should be. They stopped doing that, and we started getting a consultant to determine how much the replacement cost, how much in their opinion the replacement cost should be. And it's not the entire project. We're not trying to build up a reserve to replace the whole project at one time. It's all based on depreciation, and we have the study and exactly how everything was calculated, which I would be happy to get to you.
That would be
and
fine.
the council members.
That would be fine. The last question is, you indicated that of the 4 parishes, that everyone pays the same amount regardless of what parish you're in. Do you have a way, or do you have a graph that shows what each parish generates to make up your 100% of your funding? Like, what is the collection Lafayette? What is the collection Vermilion? What is the collection Iberia? Is that available to us?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I think it's available right here. Yeah, Bruce always has the data. Log it. Fancy equipment, you turn it one way, it rotates. Without delaying, and I'll look at it now that Bruce, but I wanted to see what was being generated per parish and kind of look at your layout there. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ontario?
Yes, just to follow up on what Mr. Boudreau said, and if he remembers, I know about 4 years ago, Mr. Segura, or maybe 5, I had actually brought up a lot of information pertaining to the Test Vermilion Water District. The first thing I want to address is what Mr. Boudreau said about the amount. You're talking about 1.5 mills. Yes, everybody pays the same millage, but my numbers from back then, from what I remember, is Lafayette was paying 60 to 70% of the 4 parish amount. Basically, the amount contributed, Lafayette was contributing 60 to 70%, and the other 35% was being contributed by the other 3 parishes. And another thing we were talking about in reference that he mentioned about you having available funds to replace the whole system, and I remember this quite vividly because I had posed a question back then, because at that time you guys, if I recall, had a $26 million fund balance. And my question was at that time is that why did you have so many? And we as a council, some of the previous council members were told that we had to have this on hand in the event we had to replace everything at any given time immediately. Now, from what I've looked at, I think you guys are well above $30 million in a fund balance right now. And if you don't mind, if you could get that also, I'd like to see that number. I think we do have that, but as for the information, I just remembered that when Mr. Boudreaux was talking about it. So we do appreciate you providing that information, Mr. Segura. Thank you so much. And that's all I have, sir.
We'll get all of that information to you.
Okay. Councilman Cole?
Now that I got my toy to play properly. Mr. Terrio is correct. The Lafayette portion is 65.3% of the 4 parish revenue.
I guess I got one question, Mr. Donald. Could you come up for a second? Would that percentage be based on population, or is that, how did that derive of 63% Lafayette?
It's all one district. So the total assessment in the district is what's assessed. The total assessment in the district brings in $5 million at 1.41 mils. Wherever the assessment is, everybody pays the same. Lafayette is the hub of the district. This is where the businesses are located. This is where people live. There is more assessment here. There's more people here. That's why there's more assessment paid in Lafayette as compared to Vermilion, Iberia, or St. Martin. Who's to say that there would not be something that would develop in Vermilion Parish that would offset that to where the percentages would shift?
Okay.
So it's not an unfairness that is coming from Lafayette. Everybody, if you have a house in Vermilion Parish and you have the same value of a house in Lafayette Parish, you will pay the same amount of property tax.
Gotcha. Thank you for clearing that up. And I'm not trying to say that I just wanted to get the understanding of how it all broke down. So that's all I have, Councilman Cone.
Mr. Segura, your current property tax will expire at the end of 2020?
2021.
2021. So you will probably ask for a continuance or renewal of the existing property tax in 2020?
Or 2019.
Or 2019, if the law allows that. Does the continuation of the district depend upon the support of all 4 parishes?
Definitely. We need your support.
But do you need voter approval? Do you need voter approval in each of the parishes?
No, we don't.
What do you need?
We need the majority of voters in the district.
So there's the other, I'm sorry, Bruce. Does the other parishes have to vote too?
Yeah, if it doesn't pass in one parish, but the total is for it, then it will pass. It's not an individual parish that has to support this. It's like a district. We're all one district.
I got you. Okay. All right. I don't see anything else. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next speaker, please.
Larry Rader.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me begin by thanking the Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, council members, as well as those who are in attendance tonight for the opportunity to be here to speak with you. My name is Larry Rader, and I am a candidate for Congress for the 3rd Congressional District. I just want to take you through memory lane here just for a moment of who I am and where I originated from. I'm from a small community about maybe 20 miles east of here, Jeanerette, Louisiana, born and raised. Graduated from high school in 1971, joined the United States Air Force. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran. Got out of the military and came to ULL, University of Southwestern Louisiana at the time. Stayed there for about 3 years and then decided to go to work for Shell Oil Company. I worked with Shell for about 10 years, and then I went into business for myself in a retail business. Currently, I'm an employee for Shell, for Allstate Insurance Company. I've been an agent for the last 25 years, as well as invest in real estate throughout the Acadiana area. So the purpose that I'm here today is to sort of, first of all, let you guys know that I'm running for Congress and that I've got a plan, and I wanted to share my plan with you during my 3 minutes and 48 seconds that I have left of fame. So she's passing out some cards for you, Ms. Williams are, and on the back of the card, it has 6 bullet points on the back of this card. I want to talk about the first one. The first bullet point is to diversify our economy, and with jobs being number 1, not only here in Lafayette Parish, but throughout the 3rd Congressional District. Jobs are number 1 throughout the South, as a matter of fact, at this time. The oil industry is down, and what I would like to do and what I hope to achieve is to sort of soften the blow whenever we're in a slump in the oil industry, to diversify our economy with clean energy, green energy, solar panels. And this is how we would do it. We would start off by having those individuals that are incarcerated, have them to build the solar panels just like they make the license plates. And then from there, we'll teach them that trade. They will learn that trade while they're in prison. So when they come out, guess what? Rather than breaking in someone's home, breaking in someone's car, or taking something or doing something they shouldn't be doing, those individuals will have a trade, which will relieve the stress that's placed on us as taxpayers. So that's number 1. Hopefully, the elderly will receive those solar panels first. The next thing I would like to do is make sure that the federal minimum wage is increased. I think we should be somewhere around 15, 16 bucks an hour. I also promote equal pay for equal work. I support the affordable health care. We need to do something about that. Our hospitals are in trouble. We really need to work on that on a federal level. I also support an affordable college education. And this is something you guys may be aware of. I know some of the youth are. Some of our youth in college, once they graduate, are paying more for a college education than we are paying for a mortgage on our home. Unbelievable, huh? But we need to do something about that. And unless we get the right guy in there with the right mindset, you know, I think nothing's going to be done because nothing's been done in the past. Last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about the incident that happened in Florida. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with us, but then maybe it has a lot to do with us. We have our kids in school, our grandkids are in school. I would like to propose, if I go to Congress, where we have a national mental health plan where there's a mental health professional in all of our schools from 1st grade on up to 12th. When these kids start having problems, when they start, you know, picking on each other or whatever problem they're having, even at home, they will have someone, a professional on board that they can go and talk with. I don't agree with arming individuals in our schools or arming the kids to prevent something negative happening to them. So once again, my name is Larry Rader. I'm asking to be your congressman November the 6th. Please consider me. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll beat the clock.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next speaker.
Assessor Conrad Como, and I provided each of you with a handout that he provided.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Conrad Como, Lafayette Parish Assessor. If you don't mind, I'll stick to the script to keep it short and succinct. And I am here to address the issue that was just brought up, the Tesh-Vermilion Freshwater District. They've done a great job of providing fresh water for the Tesh and Vermilion rivers since the early 1970s. And I've supported their mission since I first became a public official in 1984. But with the flood in 2016, it's time for us to address flooding on a regional basis in the Tesh-Vermilion Freshwater District area and watershed. As we all know, floodwaters know no boundaries. Therefore, flooding, by its very nature, is a regional issue. After consulting with Mr. Robideau, I asked Representative Stuart Bishop to sponsor House Bill 410, which I think you've been provided, to increase the powers of the Tesh-Vermilion Freshwater District to include developing, constructing, and maintaining flood control measures and structures, planning and coordination for water flow, drainage, and flood abatement resource utilization, including such functions as water flow drainage and flood abatement research, programming, and solicitation, and many other items that the district is currently prohibited from participating in. I did this for the following reasons. The Tesh-Vermilion Freshwater District is one of the only multi-parish taxing authorities that exists in the watershed region that deals with water flow. The district is already set up to be able to address multi-parish flood prevention, abatement, and control issues. And it makes absolutely no sense to create another entity, multi-parish entity, that may conflict with the operations of this district. Number two, the district has numerous water control structures, as you've already heard, that are in place, and to take on flood control would simply be a natural extension of their current mission. Number three, the district has the funding source and financial capacity to address flooding issues. As was said earlier, at the end of 2016, their fund balance was $27 million. Roughly 4.7 came from Iberia, 2.8 came from St. Martin, 2.3 from Vermilion, and 17 million came out of Lafayette Parish taxpayers. In 2017, the district's revenue were approximately $5 million, as you heard before. 3.2 million came out of Lafayette Parish. While the district is currently participating in a watershed gauge project, they're doing it because it pertains to their current mission, fresh water. Any project past this point concerning flooding would be outside of their scope of operations. I'm asking that the council and mayor president support House Bill 410 and to communicate your support to your representative on the Tesh-Vermilion Freshwater District, our Acadiana delegation in Baton Rouge, as well as the other governing authorities for parishes in the district. With hurricane season approaching, I think it's time for us to act before we have another 2016 incident, or worse, what happened in Texas in 2017. Thank you. I would appreciate your support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Conrad. Not seeing any other council. Next speaker, please.
Wallace Senegal.
Now he's ready. Ready? Called you out of order.
Yeah, you called me out at the right time now.
All right.
No, I appreciate you looking out for me before.
Got
Good
you
evening,
back.
ladies and gentlemen. Before I get started too far going, I want to make an announcement that early voting is taking place as of this week. And all those that need to go out and vote for, and I think that's tax renewal, so this is what it is. But anyway, the real reason I wanted to come up here, it was basically you, President Nakan, Councilman Boudreaux, and Councilman J. Castile. I was watching AOC one night, and I seen that y'all had a meeting, and I can't remember the name of the meeting.
It was at the Light Center?
It was at the Light Center. And everybody had good points. The audience had good PowerPoints, but you, Mr. Nakan, was right on point when you brought out about we have to stand up and start looking back at the forefathers and what they did compared to what we need to do today, you know, because we're all in this together. It's not one side versus the other side. We all in this together. So that's what I wanted to commend you guys for. Y'all did a very good job on that, all three of y'all. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Also to reflect for the record, Mr. Conk was there as well. And we, see, I'm taking, you see what I'm saying? And we also had Councilman Cook and Ms. Liz and Councilman Pat Lewis was there that evening. Thank you. I'm glad AOC aired it and a lot of people watched it, so thank you. I appreciate it. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Andrew Abear, and he signed in first as a registered city voter, and then later he signed in as a registered parish voter.
All right.
Oh,
I got you on.
good evening.
Good evening.
I brought my dictionary.
All
So
right.
I'll be sure the terms we use are correct. I don't mean to imply any illegality or unconstitutional activity. However, I do question gerrymandering of council districts. So to the best of my knowledge, in an abundance of caution, I hope my points will resonate and remain accurate with good information. We need to define the terms. Mr. Cox said never was a mention of a merger. I'm going to quote it. Shall the government of the parish of Lafayette and the government of the city of Lafayette be merged into one unified government? That's what the citizens voted on, a merger. So let's understand what that means. Black's Law Dictionary. Quote, the fusion or absorption of one thing or right into another. Generally spoken, in a case of where one of the subjects is of less dignity or importance than the other. Here, the less important ceases to have independent existence. Merger of corporations, since we are the corporate limits of the city of Lafayette. An amalgamation of two corporations pursuant to statutory provision in which one of the corporations survives and the other disappears. The absorption of one company by another, the former losing its legal identity and latter retaining its own name and identity and acquisition, assets, liabilities, franchise, and powers of the former. An absorbed company ceases to exist as a separate business entity. City of Lafayette does not exist. It differs from consolidation, whereas in all the corporations terminate their existence and become parties to a new one. Consolidation, merger, that's what we voted on. There should not be two separate property taxes. There should not be two separate books. There should not be two separate voters. Because the Constitution says, Section 16, Special Districts and Local Public Agencies, Section 16A, consolidation. A local government subdivision may consolidate and merge. It doesn't say just consolidate, it says merge into itself any special district. Upon the consolidation and merger, the local governmental subdivision shall succeed to be invested with all the rights. A consolidation merger shall become effective only if approved by a majority. The merger was approved. And consolidation. When's it going to take place? I actually have a copy of the ballots if y'all would like one, and the election results. The charter is flawed in that it doesn't merge us. It needs to be merged. We need to become one government. Lafayette Parish 1. That's what the citizens voted for. That's what we should be. It's interesting that when a tax is imposed by cities, those city voters get to go talk to their city council and have a voice to speak about that tax, like Scott, Carencro, Dusson, Youngson, and Broussard. Then those same people can come to this council